Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. Now, I've taken a little bit of a hiatus. I ran into Jaemin at a conference that I was speaking at earlier on in the week, and I'm like, I've got a little bit frustrated with the podcast. I thought I'd take a little bit of a break from it. We'd had a conversation, and I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit to bring him back on as a guest. But it was interesting that when you decide to kind of stop something due to insecurities or whatever it might be, and you say, stuff it, the world always tends to kind of slap you in the face and bring it back full circle. And it's very, very timely because a new friend here, Jaemin Frazer, who we're going to be going deep into insecurity. And I've really come to realize of late that insecurity has such a significant impact in so many aspects of our life and our business and our money. And it's never spoken about blatantly. And I think many people accept their kind of status quo in terms of their security or insecurity or somewhere in between for what it is and just deal with it. And I'm really excited to kind of unpack this today, mate, and hopefully definitely share some pearls of wisdom that are going to help our audience shift this insecurity and move beyond those self-limiting beliefs. So, Jaemin, thanks for joining us, mate. How you doing?
Oh, thanks for having me, Jackson. Yeah, always looking forward to this podcast. It was a real privilege to get to share about such an important subject.
Awesome, mate. So let's go back to the beginning, mate. Tell a little bit about your story and how what you do now came to be.
Okay, so probably the most relevant starting point was I grew up in a really Christian home. Long story short, ended up feeling really compelled to go into ministry. So I went and did a degree in theology at Bible College, and I actually got given the leadership of the church that I grew up in when I was 23. So I was very wholehearted about that. It made a lot of sense to me. And the privilege of being a pastor is I was invited into people's world all the time to have conversations about the things that matter. But one of the things, so I was a pastor for 10 years, and one of the things that constantly intrigued me was how ineffective those conversations seemed to be, that I'd have the same conversations with the same people about the same things year in, year out. And I observed a pattern that typically the Christians, certainly in my world, would outsource the responsibility for change onto God. Kind of had this magic, mythic worldview that if they prayed, if they had faith, if they read their Bible, if they came to church, then God would somehow magically improve their life. And I always thought that was strange. I thought that we were invited to participate and that responsibility and self-awareness really belonged, but there was no language around that. And so I actually got introduced to the coaching skill set from a mentor of mine, and I was so taken by how precise those tools were, and they were a missing technology in my world. And so I dived into that world headlong. I just went, I got to know more about how this coaching stuff works. And so it really resonated so deeply. And I thought, I think this is a really important skill set to bring. And eventually it led me to pursue my own business, to go, I think I was a good pastor, but I think I could be an excellent coach. I think this opens up a world beyond the religious context, and I could be useful to many more. And it really impacted me deeply in terms of my own personal journey. So anyway, it was all great until I went to write my first book off the back of, I'm putting out content, I'm trying to make a difference, I'm serving people. And I remember the day when I was away studying. I had the time and space to start writing. I finished writing the first chapter of my first book at 11 o'clock at night in my hotel room after telling my wife and my best friend that I was starting, and this was the book, and I was in the game. And then the moment I shut the laptop, all this excitement and passion and energy turned to fear and dread and holy shit, what have I done? Like, I've actually begun a process that will expose me. Because who am I? Like, I just realized I'd gone from this safe, known world where I was celebrated, where I was the top. Like, I had grown up in that world. I was loved. I was respected. I had a platform. I had influence. And now I'm stepping out in a world that I don't know, and no one knows me. And what am I going to do? What am I going to say? Who cares? It was just, oh, wow. And this mountain of insecurity in my own life was exposed because I'd stepped beyond what I knew. And I was so terrorized by that fear. And I just thought there were only really two options. I thought, this is either a solvable problem or it's not. And so I'll either find a way through this, or I'll have to shrink back to the world I know. I can't manage this. This seems too catastrophic to manage. So I began a quest to go, has anyone ever solved this problem? Has anyone thought about this before? And it turns out, obviously, lots of people have thought about insecurity before. But what I was most curious to see was, had anyone solved it? And in my research, I discovered there were a bunch of people who found a way to be unhindered by doubt, fear, and insecurity in a really genuine way. I just didn't see that anyone had actually mapped the journey or modeled it. And so I have a real engineering bent to the way that my brain works, how I see the world. I'm very curious, very pragmatic. And so I just, firstly, for my own sake, kind of reverse engineered their journey so that I could solve the problem for me. And in the process, realized there were 7 essential practices in every case for these people, whether they were aware of it or not, whether they were intentional or not. These 7 practices were how they had solved the problem. And so I thought it'd be very useful to model it and map it for myself, and then embody it so that I could, show that framework to others. And then, sooner or later, I became ruined for anything else. And I kind of, in the process of being useful to others, especially ambitious people, it seemed that in every time, the thing that was getting in the way most was their doubts, fears, and insecurities and their limiting beliefs. And so I thought, I can't have this aversion to behavior management. I want to facilitate lasting change. So I've got to get good at coaching around this issue. And so eventually, 6 years ago, I doubled down on it and called myself the Insecurity Project. And when I told my business coach that's what I was going to do, he said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. Like, that's not the right name. That what will you do when that doesn't work? People are insecure about being insecure, Jaemin. And it goes against all the business rules. You can't pitch the problem. You got to pitch the prize. So you should be the confidence guy or the self-esteem expert, not the insecurity guy. That's like saying I'm the shit business guy. That's not how it works." And so he really put the kibosh on my dream. And it knocked the wind out of my sails for 2 or 3 days until I was doing some driving and just reflecting and thinking about it. And I heard myself say, Jaemin, he's not your mum. That's not his vision. He can't tell you what to do. What do you want again? Well, what I want is to help people get out of unnecessary suffering. Life is hard enough as it is, with all the things that are really complex, but the things that can be solved and already have been, well, surely you shouldn't suffer in those areas. So people suffer greatly for not knowing insecurity is a solvable problem. So what I want to do is to make a resource available for people so they could not suffer there. And it felt incredibly unkind if I'm sitting on a model that works to not devote my life to making that model useful to others. And so I'm like, I'm going in. So flag in the sand. I'm going to be the insecurity guy. And that's all I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to talk about, whether it's easy or hard, vulnerable or not. I'm ruined for anything else. So that's what I've done for the last 6 years or so. And one thing that the business coach didn't anticipate was the SEO impact of picking a narrow and difficult niche and going all in on that. Yes. Because I'm not sure there's anyone in the world in the last 6 years who's written and spoken as much about insecurity as I have. So now people find me from everywhere and they go, okay, who's this guy who keeps banging on about? So
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense, mate. And I think you've made the right call, and good on you for following your gut and having that confidence to do so, mate. I think it's a testament to what you stand for. Now, I'm very curious about the 7 steps, but I want to lay some of the foundations on this first, mate, because I resonate with a lot of what you've spoken about. I was a very insecure person, particularly when I was younger and growing up. And I struggled a lot with self-limiting beliefs and this idea that I wasn't worthy. And I was always the underdog. And there was a tipping point for me. And I can't necessarily put my finger on it. And I'm sure the 7 steps are going to help shine light on that. I'm 100% confident of that. But where did this insecurity come from? What are the common themes, particularly in the business owners and entrepreneurs that you work in, that is the cause of their insecurity?
It's universal and uh, inescapable. There's only one cause of insecurity, and this is part of the process in solving it, because most people have no idea. Well, no, that's not true. Most people think they know where it came from,
Mm,
and they're caught up in the misdirection of that, and so therefore get taken so far away from anything that's solvable and feel like they are powerless to do anything about it. So
mm,
um, so all insecurity is created by the opinion of a scared child.
mm.
So quite simply, we don't start insecure. Every toddler 0 to 2 objectively, experientially knows with every cell in their being that they matter, as evidenced by the fact that the moment something is less than perfect in their world, they demand it be improved, and they get met at that level of demand. So, and they're not exchanging anything. There's no transactions. They're not paying board. They're not doing the dishes. They're not contributing. They're just, look at this. I get needs met just because I'm here. Turns out I'm enough. Turns out I'm more than enough. So that's where everyone starts. And you might say, well, my parents were terrible. But if you're alive, your awareness was, my needs get met. I get looked
Yeah.
after just because I'm here and I'm not contributing.
Mm,
But then invariably the game changes. You get beyond 2 or somewhere around that, 2 things happen. Firstly, the gift of consciousness comes. So that's a problem, because now you've got to make sense of your world, and you're in an adult world. So like, I got a couple of dogs, a couple of Labradors. They're lovely girls. They do enjoy a good walk, and they get very excited if I take them for a walk. If I get caught up or I'm too busy and I can't take them for a walk, they get very, very sad. But then the next day when I take them for a walk, they get very, very happy again. And in the meantime, they don't have an existential crisis. They don't go into a room full of mirrors and think, is it me? Am I a bad dog? I must be a bad dog. That's all I can imagine. So, whereas humans, because we're sense makers, we go into the world with 2 questions to make sense of our dilemmas. Question 1, why did this happen? Question 2, what does it mean about me? And when you're a kid in an adult world and you're embarrassed or disappointed or upset, you can't help but personalize the answers negatively and
yeah.
assume the only reason why your parents are getting divorced, you didn't get the bike for Christmas, you didn't get picked in the team, is a reflection of you. It's the only thing that could make sense. And so in those moments, invariably, you accuse yourself of some lack or limit. You form an assumption, you form an opinion, and worse, you form an accusation. And you feel like you've got enough data to agree with that accusation, and so you lock it in, and it becomes what's true for you. And then from that moment, because you're so certain, you just find evidence that it's true, and then you take on a persona to cover and compensate, prove and defend, and there begins your life. And so that's no one escapes that. Even perfect parents do not prevent their children from forming limiting beliefs. It's not possible. I would say it's not desirable, but that's another issue. But just to
Sure.
answer your question, where does it come from? The upset, the difficulties, the embarrassment of our childhood, and the sense we make about why it happens and what it means about us.
It's very interesting, mate, because I can pinpoint with complete accuracy that event that happened
Yep.
to me.
And there is an origin. There is a moment in time for
Yeah.
every single person.
And it's interesting. I believe that event and was a catalyst for everything that I've created, and the confidence that I've gone on to create for myself. And there seems to be a theme, like in particularly high performing people, they've come from some level of uncertainty or insecurity, bad upbringing, low self esteem, but the underdog, everyone knocked them down, and they kind of like this phoenix from the ashes, right? This very much rags to riches story. Is this just a coincidence, or does this share something in common?
No, well, uh, I used to be on a mission to eradicate insecurity from the world,
Mm,
and I used to get opportunities to speak to high school students about insecurity all the time. And one day I discovered something very profound about how insecurity works, because while teachers are very excited about me coming in and parents are so overjoyed that I'm talking to their kids about insecurity, do you know who's not excited about me talking to them about insecurity? 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Like, they're little shits. They're not ready
yeah.
for wisdom yet. And what I discovered is that the relationship between insecurity and performance as we age is profound. And more often than not, insecurity is rocket fuel in our younger years. And the more insecure you are, often the more profound that energy has to you to, I'll show you, I'll go above and beyond, I won't stop, I'll show you. And like having to prove yourself and overcome is rocket fuel. It's the only way to describe it. So yeah, it does correlate to dramatic performance, dramatic achievement. The challenge is it's also toxic energy and unsustainable, and it will spit you out hard. And so my main client base are midlifers who are coming to this. And I'll make this. I'll show you this diagram. I don't know if we're able to show it now, but I'll send it to you so you can share it in the notes to see this crossover, because somewhere in the midlife season, the law of diminishing returns, insecurity is no longer motivating you. Now it's weakening you. And if you're still driving your whole life by the need to prove and defend yourself into your 50s, you're now the insecure wanker in the room. And it's hard to be you. It's hard to watch you. And I promise you, insecurity is not serving you. Like, it's ruining everything. And so I think it's very difficult to resolve insecurity before midlife. And I don't think it's even, why would you? If it's rewarding you, if it's motivating you, let it run, let's do its thing. So I stopped preaching to people who, what's the problem? There is no problem yet. But when there's a problem, sure. Yeah, you can solve this, and it's quite straightforward. But yeah, you're right. It drives up performance dramatically.
So let's talk about this midlife stage, because that represents a lot of our client base too. They're in kind of late 30s, early 40s, into their 50s.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to always manifest itself in the same way, right? I don't think necessarily insecure people it's easy to pick them, particularly because I suspect they've got very good at masking, particularly those who are high performance. So if somebody's listening to this, what are the telltale signs that they should be looking out for to realize that their insecurities, known or otherwise, are not serving them anymore?
Sure. So there are a range of really predictable ways that insecurity gets in the way. But let's start big picture for a minute and just consider that if you were to just reflect for a moment on your energy, what gets your best energy? If your best energy is being directed to proving yourself and defending yourself, and you're imagining that that's peak performance, like that only works when you've got energy to waste. And that's the young season. You don't have energy to waste as a midlifer. Midlife is about optimizing. So the sense of exhaustion in midlife is a real telltale sign that insecurity it's costing you more than it's giving you. Just the constant, it's never enough. Every time I succeed, I can't even celebrate it. It's like, yeah, someone's validating me now, someone's celebrating, applauding, cheering, but what about tomorrow? This person likes me now, but I got to keep them liking me. Like, there is no rest. And so you don't need rest when you're young. You steal from Peter to pay Paul, you keep it all going. But if you're feeling exhausted just by the madness of where your energy goes, like, that's a big picture telltale sign. That does require a pretty high level of awareness to notice that. But another key area, which is challenging, but almost inevitable, is that insecurity will manifest as physically. It'll, because that exhaustion, your unconscious will be upset at the fact that your whole operating system is a form of madness. And so I find in the midlife season, the unconscious mind tries to get your attention to go, is this how it's going to roll for the rest? Like, you're going to treat me like I'm your enemy? You're going to continue to cover and compensate the accusation that you thought was wrong with me when I was 6? Like, can we review this? Oh, no, I don't. I got to keep going. Well, yeah, I can't abide that. So let's pull some fuses out. So injury and illness, like weird health stuff. I love weird health stuff. When someone's got something, the doctors are like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is one of those things, and we can medicate. But you'll have to manage this for the rest of your life. Like, I love autoimmune stuff. I just think, no, That is your unconscious trying to get your attention to end the madness and resolve this insecurity. So, to the general exhaustion manifesting as, in motivation drop, inefficiencies, physical, emotional tiredness, I think are the real generalizations around how insecurity shows up in the midlife season.
Makes a lot of sense, and you can see that in so many people.
You
That they're
can,
burnt.
yeah,
That
and the
that
suffering. They're suffering greatly, and this is, I'm like, oh man, like life is suffering. So the aim of the game is not to avoid suffering, but it's to choose between unnecessary suffering and meaningful suffering. So,
I get you.
okay, insecurity is a solvable problem.
Yes.
That's
And the interesting thing is, it's not the intuitive thing to solve, right? Because you see so many
no.
people that go through burnout or this midlife crisis, and the solutions that they implement are this kind of live, laugh, love, superficial, just
Mm,
surface level crap, to be fair, that might keep them occupied for a moment, but really doesn't get to the root cause of the issue. So I'm
mm.
very interested to understand the 7 steps of the process. Would you mind walking us through your methodology of how you go about helping people that are in this position?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Because you're right. I think the level of existential angst around insecurity, it makes it feel like a monster. So the idea of turning and facing it seems so counterintuitive, and um, that's a big obstacle for people to go. What, we've got to go back. We've got to have a look under the covers. Yeah, of course. All right, so let me give you a snapshot about the 7. I'll try and make them as simple as possible without oversimplifying. So practice 1 in general is to step into the light. So your instinct is to run and hide, because what we are all most afraid of is that our worst assumption about ourselves will be proven true by the world. That's the ultimate fear. We're not afraid of failure. We're not afraid of rejection. We're afraid of what those things would reveal about us. If I was to fail, that proves I am a failure. If I'm rejected, that proves I was never worth loving anyway. So when you look at that, that's the worst thing we've ever said about ourselves. We don't want it confirmed. So to step into the light and name your fear. Yoda says, named must your fear be, before banish it you can. So if you don't even know what you're running and hiding from, then what are you supposed to do about it? So turn the light on, understand, whether I should be insecure or I shouldn't be insecure, I am. It gets my best energy. Okay, all right, what is this thing? So you don't have to fight it yet. You just have to see what it is, see it clearly. And so it's profound what happens when you're willing to see, because if you realize that your whole life has been spent covering and compensating what you agreed was true about you, the worst thing you ever thought was true about you when you were a kid, you realize that you are most afraid of the opinion of a scared child. Like, it's an opinion problem. And you go in the dictionary, opinion is the lowest form of knowing anything. So sure, you've been living as though you're right, but what if you're wrong? Like, what kid has the capacity to get it right? Maybe a kid did get it right. Maybe you are shit. Maybe you are not worthy. Sure, that's possible. But until you name the thing that you're running from, you can't do anything. There's no other way through. So that's practice 1. Practice 2 is to take 100% responsibility for creating the insecurity. So that's a big step, because when people go, okay, I'm afraid that I'm worthless. And they go, well, I can tell you why I feel like that. Because when I was 4, and I had this experience, my dad left and has never spoken to me. And, that's why I feel terrible. Or when I was at school, my teacher said I was stupid. Or, when I went to high school, I got bullied for the way that I look. So that's why. But this kind of builds off the work of Don Miguel Ruiz. If you've ever read The 4 Agreements, one of the greatest books ever written. It's the top of my most recommended, most gifted books. It's a small book. But he says, look, you got to understand this. It's not the words spoken to you or about you that change your life. It's just the ones you agree with. So that's transformational, because it turns out no one actually has the power to bless you or curse you without your permission. So many people are caught up in the misdirection of what was said and done to them, assuming that's where the action took place. That is not where the action took place, because otherwise the opposite would be true as well. If you have been cursed by the negative words, then you must have been blessed by the positive words. So every time your mum said you're awesome, that should have changed your life. It didn't, because you didn't agree. And so it just puts you at the center. It puts you as the one with the pen. You're not the actor, you're the storyteller. So you cursed you. You formed an opinion. You formed an assumption. You accused you. You're not the victim in this story. You're the bully. So like that's dramatic, because all change comes out of responsibility. Practice 3 is to stack the pain. So just because something's killing you does not mean you have to pay attention to the fact that it's doing this. I'm sure you would see this in people's financial affairs. Like, just because someone's bankrupt doesn't mean they have to know it, doesn't mean they have to say it, doesn't mean they have to live like that. You can pretend things are better than they are.
Yes.
You can kick the can down the line. You can not tell the truth. If you do tell the truth, it's dramatic. So insecurity will ruin your life. There's no other way to think about it. It will lead you to madness. That's the inevitable and unavoidable consequence of unresolved insecurity. So that's true for every human, but most people are pretending that's not true. So avoiding pain, like that's how anyone smokes cigarettes too. Like you just pretend it's not killing you. Okay, then you keep doing it. If you pay attention to the cost, if you do an accurate cost assessment, then the pain becomes higher than the pleasure, and every cell in our body is motivated instinctively to move away from pain. So if you tell the truth about the impact of insecurity on your finances, on your marriage, on your health, on your mental health, like you just go, this is costing me a fortune. This is costing me everything. So yes, I'm afraid of leaning into this, but the cost of not doing this continues exponentially into the future. So there's pain and change, but more pain involved in staying the same. And so now you've got motivation going, I've got to go back. So every day someone would tell me that they assume I don't, like I'm a coach, not a therapist. Surely this is about forward focus, success strategies. Give me some strategies to be confident. And they're like, we don't have to go back into the past, do we? And I say, like, I never take people back into the past. I mean, except where it's necessary, and it's always bloody necessary. So yeah, like, what do you think this is? Like, you accused yourself of being shit when you were 4 or 5, and you don't want to go back and review the data around that. So you're gonna have a big reason to do the thing you've been avoiding, and so pain is a big reason. That's practice 3, which is only half of the reason, because practice 4 is develop a compelling vision. So if you just have a pain avoidance strategy, you'll just do enough to get out of the immediate pain. And then, Tony Robbins does this well, the pressure cooker system. Massive pain leads to massive motivation, which leads to massive action, which leads to massive change, which dials down the pain, which dials down the motivation, which dials down the action. And 6 months later, you're back there. So more than what don't you want, what do you want instead? So, this kind of really mirrors the hero's journey in many ways. So the hero's got to have a quest. What's the point? Why, if Frodo's not compelled to do something meaningful, why is he risking his life every day? Like, go back to the Shire, Frodo, go home to bed. Doesn't make sense. You're going to do something like confront the deepest existential angst. Why? Why would you do that? And so to get Phil back in touch with the dream, which sounds easy, is not. Like, all of these stages are hard, simple and hard, not complicated. The desire is human. So if you're alive, then desire is inside you. But most people, again, they're pretending like they don't know what they want, because somewhere along the line they realize saying what you want gets you exposed and is more likely to cause you to be found out and the insecurities revealed. So it's just safer to not know what you want, let someone else tell you, then you'll be rewarded socially. But you're lying to yourself. So you do know what you want. You've always known. You just didn't think you deserved it, or it was too hard. So opening that dream again and developing that you must. If you get to the end of your life, you haven't given yourself permission to live, then you'll be devastated. You'll be one of the people with the 5 regrets of the dying. Is that what you want? It's not. Okay. Then, and then when it gets hard in the journey, and it does, practice 3 and 4 at the entry point back in. Where is this costing you? Okay, accurate cost assessment. Let's tell the truth. Where's the pain? Stop pretending things are okay. They're not okay. And what do you want again? What's the dream you got for your life? Because if you don't resolve this, you're never getting there. You do know that. Like, it's the only thing in the way. You do understand that. So you sure you want that? All right, let's go again. Okay, practice 5. Get help from someone who doesn't care about you. So this is, when I discovered this, it was such a game-changing idea, because you'd think you'd need someone caring, who believes in you, who's going to encourage you, support you, put air in your tires. But when you realize, look, this wasn't caused by someone else, so it won't be fixed by someone else either. No one's coming to save you. So in the hero's journey, there's always a wisdom character. There's always a Gandalf. There's a Yoda. There's a Dumbledore. There's a Mr. Miyagi. But they're not the hero. And this is the great challenge for those working in the therapy space, because they often confuse the world about who the hero is. So often people working in that space have not resolved their insecurity, and they're being rewarded by rescuing. They like to be the expert. They like to be the one, and they're insulated by sitting behind the desk giving out advice. So that's a horrible thing to do to a human being. So my distinction, whenever I get the privilege of being invited into someone's world to take them through this, my very first job is to convince them that I don't care about them. And that's a big deal, because I know I look like someone who cares. But the moment they confuse me for someone who cares, they're in a lot of trouble, because I say, I'm not losing any sleep over you. I won't I'll forget about you. I'm not the one with the problem. I've already solved this. So I don't need anything from you. I'm not invested in your results. So I can be dispassionate. I can be clean. And it turns out that you can't do judgment and awareness at the same time. So one of the most subtle and powerful forms of judgment when you talk with someone else is wanting from you, but for you. People who care about you, they want for you. So the people who say, I want you to succeed. I want you to be happy. I want you to be doing well. They're actually dangerous. They're actually impeding your own empowerment. So the coaching space, especially if we're going to talk about the deepest, scariest thing, I've got to create a clean space where it's safe to come out of hiding, and whatever they reveal, they can't implicate themselves. So that clean space it's essential. You're going to need help, because you're so in your head. You've got so much evidence that this is true. You'll need someone who's outside, who can draw you out of your own story and let you see objectively. Because really, all you need to solve insecurity is objectivity. Like, it's never been true. You made something up when you were a kid and you thought it was true. It's not ever been true. And you're the only person in the whole world who still thinks it's true, by the way. So all you need is an objective review of the data, which sounds really simple, but it's not, because we're subjective creatures. So that objectivity. Practice 6 is, okay, you got to go be the hero now. So in every hero's journey, the wisdom character is always gone too soon. And we're back to Frodo from the Shire. Like, what's he going to do? How's it? Like Gandalf, I thought he could fix it, but Frodo, like, he's a freaking hobbit. So we're back to the weak hero who's got to do the thing that's impossible. And there's no other way. Like, to actually go back and open the file, review the data objectively, the thing you've been running and hiding from, eventually you will have to go find out if it's true. And it's binary, like, because it's an accusation. Think about it legally. Either that accusation has grounds and is upheld, or that accusation has no grounds and is overturned. And you're headlong into finding out which one it is. And this is the hero's journey, right? Because the hero gets to this point where they're too far gone, they can't go back. They realize they either die or they come out the other side reborn. And they think, of those two options, it's more likely that they'll die. This is too big. I can't go home. So, all right, going to go fight the monster. Here we go. And so in the Joseph Campbell, the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. So, all right, you're going back into the thing. But it's not practice 1, it's practice 6. So you've kind of thought about it, you've seen it, you've understood. It's just an opinion problem. It's likely to be untrue. It's costing you a fortune and it's not what you want. It's universal and unavoidable. So by that stage, you're like, okay. And then having gone in and seen that the data has not been true, and to change your opinion about the accusation, to disagree with what you decided was true, and to apologize for the fallout of being the accuser to your own self for so long. When you thought it was someone else who'd cursed you, you'd realize you're the one, and to make amends and to rebuild trust. Then you're free to move to practice 7, which is to rewrite the story. So, you've always been the one with the pen. So now use it like an adult. Now write a beautiful and compelling story for yourself. And what do you agree is true now? And then to reinforce and embody that new message, that new story. So I find people often want to rush to practice 7. They go, I get it, rewrite the story. So that's
It's the
affirmations
beautiful
on my
part.
mirror.
But yeah,
Good.
you can't
I
do that
can.
without all of the other part, right?
Well, if you don't deconstruct the old story, then the moment you get tired, stressed, anxious, triggered, there's still this war within, and there's still this
Correct.
angst, and it comes out and it takes over like it always has. You must deconstruct it all the way back, and once and for all decide it has not been true, it's never been true, and fix it at the source the very
Makes
first
sense.
time. You can't fix it from this end. You have to go back to where it was created, that pivot point in your life, the first time your world shifted, where you got so embarrassed, so shocked, so disappointed, and assumed the only logic was because of you. It was a reflection of you. You got to go back there and sort that out. So you
This is
come out of that
fascinating,
7.
mate. It makes
Well,
so
just
much sense. Please
just
go.
one distinction, because I get people asked all the time, all right, Jaemin, so what are your insecurities? And I say, well, I don't. There's not any. There's none. Well, surely not. No, that would be horrible for me to say, oh, yeah, no, I'm still insecure. Um, what I'm saying is not only can you solve this problem, you must at your current level of growth. The aim is to be completely unhindered by doubt, fear, and insecurity at your current level of growth, so you can show up wholehearted with nothing to prove and nothing to defend, to be here on purpose, your best energy directed towards contribution and growth. When you do that, however, your world expands and you step beyond the safe, known, and comfortable and experience more uncertainty, level up, and invariably you bang your head on the next limiting belief. I realized I'm good enough for this, but am I good enough for that? Like, I realized I was good enough to earn this amount of money. Can I earn that amount of money? And so the same 7 practices that solve the problem at the last level will solve it at the next level. It's not the next time you feel insecure, it's not like you've regressed. It's evidence of growth and progress. And you just repeat the process at each level of growth. So, but it is solvable. You must solve it.
It makes so much sense. And I think the hard part is with this, mate, is people need to marinate in their pain in order to
Yeah.
go through those stages. And this is the benefit of having a coach, of somebody who can support you through it. And I think the important distinction that you made is that frankly doesn't care, right? Because I've always
Yeah.
said you can't want success more than your clients do. And the interesting part of this is because this is such confronting work, you can't want success for them at all. The process just is, and they need to want all the success for themselves. So I think it comes together beautifully, mate. This has been phenomenal, and I think so many people need this. And I hope for anybody who's listening or watching this that you can make that distinction, that something here has resonated with you. And I know you've got some tools, Jaemin, in terms of people identifying where this might be manifesting, because in some cases it can be esoteric. Like maybe it hasn't come
Oh,
to a head yet for people.
absolutely.
So how do they quantify that gap and then potentially evaluate if they need someone like you in their corner?
I mean, one of the ways I've been able to resource people to do that is, a scorecard, a test, a diagnostic to go, all right, maybe you're not insecure. Maybe you're one of the people, imagine it's possible. Maybe that's you. You want to find out? Cool. Run the diagnostic. Where is insecurity impacting your life across the 5 key indicators? And where is it impacting your business across the 5 key indicators? So just test yourself, just see, and you might be surprised. And get eyes on the impact. And I think that's always a way of increasing pain and desire, because you're like, wow, I didn't really know. And it's not what I want. It's not how I'd like this to go. And I think midlife too, I find one of the drivers is, often people are parenting young children and they're kind of seeing the impact of unresolved insecurity kind of play out on their parenting. They're like, if I don't change my story, then it's like I'm constantly impacting my own children and making it harder for them. So this is actually more important now than it's ever been. I've got to find a way out of this. So all the reasons, they see it impacting their business, they see it impacting their health, their loved ones. They're like, okay, yeah, you're right. It is costing me more than I thought. And if you kind of realize that it's solvable, then you go, it's not just one of these things. Like, the human condition is we want to be good. We're just afraid that we're not. And so for fear of that not being good ever being confirmed, we run or we hide. But it's all a misunderstanding. Like, it's all built on a scared, embarrassed, disappointed 4-year-old, 5-year-old, accusing you in their wisdom of being the reason. Like, there is no substance. It's a work of fiction. That's why it's solvable.
Yes.
There is no monster in the cave. It's just a couple of mice playing silly buggers with some tin cans and a candle projecting this shadow on the wall. Like, you're okay. You've always been okay. There's never a problem with you. It's just a story about you. That's the problem. So,
And I think the flow-on effect of this, mate, is so profound, right? And I see it manifest in our clients, of those who either of their own volition or from working with someone like yourself, solve these things, and the impact that it has on their business and their money and their ability to create financial freedom. Because if that insecurity continues to live inside you, the ability for you to create financial freedom in an authentic and abundant way is drastically limited, if not completely removed. And the risk of self-sabotage is tremendous.
Or just the direct correlation, a person's relationship with money, which is what we use to ascribe value, is a direct window into your relationship with yourself. Like, if you've felt like you have no value, that has to be showing up in how you relate to money. So it is the cap. You're right. So I watch people like you dramatically improve their capacity for wealth when it's safe, when they feel like they deserve it. And without that, they're always sabotaging. It's always weird. It always just seems like it's just out of their reach.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, mate, we're going to include the link to the scorecard in the show notes. But if people have listened or watched this and they've really resonated with what you've had to say, mate, and they want to get in touch, what's the best place for them to reach you?
I mean, my parents gave me the gift of quite a unique name. I'm the only Jaemin Frazer in the world. So if you can work out how to spell it, you'll find me. You Google Insecurity, Overcoming Insecurity, you're likely to find me. The Insecurity Project. I have a podcast, the Unhindered podcast, written some books on the subject. So the 7 Essential Practices that I've described is a book on Audible. It's on Amazon. You can find it in bookstores. So it shouldn't be hard for people to find me if they're intrigued at all.
Beautiful. We'll include those links in the show notes as well, mate. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom. There've been some amazing pearls of wisdom here, mate, and I know it's going to have a lot of impact. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with our community. And guys, just remember, a good idea in theory remains exactly that, just a good idea until you put it into practice. And if there's anything you've heard on the show, make sure you put it into place and take action, and make sure you enjoy the journey. Jaemin, good to catch up, mate, and looking forward to chatting to you again soon.
Thanks, Jackson. Bye now.